Coming up on Blue Nation, we're back with the best bouts from 2 weeks' time.
We've missed a lot the last 2 weeks, so we'll Blue Gold backtrack to cover the holes from UWEC action.
Then we'll head back to the big screen for some table talk ahead of fall tournament season.
Lastly, the crew settles down at the desk to get you prepped for one of the biggest Blue Gold sports weekends yet. DA, spin that intro.
900 athletes, 174 conference titles, 56 competitive teams, 26 national championships, all in one place. Blue Nation brings you all of your Blue Gold sports action from Carson Park
Take it into the end zone.
to the Sonnentag,
Splash Mountain.
across the street at Hobbs,
Perfect chance here. Shot in. Score.
and back up the hill to Bollinger,
2 scores.
McPhee,
Maya Cinnamon.
and Simpson.
Bicycle kick.
Live from inside our very own TV10 studios, your starting lineup of John McClain, Gary Barta, and the rest of your sports team. This is Blue Nation.
Welcome to Blue Nation, your home for all things Blue Gold sports. I'm your host, wishing you a happy Movember, John McClain.
And I'm Gary Barta, pleading with Matt LaFleur to allow your $55 million quarterback to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, bringing you stats, scores, and more from the Blue Golds and beyond.
Since our hiatus, a lot of highlights have hit the inbox, so we'll show you the best ones.
The past 2 weeks have been splattered with sports content for UWEC, so we get you caught up with Blue Gold Backtrack.
Gary and I will talk over tournaments and table talk with men's soccer, volleyball, and more.
And our closer, as always, is Weekend Relay, previewing UWEC sports in the quickest way possible.
Alec will kick us off with his pick from the ice.
This play comes from the second meeting of St. Olaf versus the Lady Golds on the ice on Saturday in Northfield. And it was Madison Krumholtz who opened up the scoring with this beautiful goal. Just 5.5 minutes into the contest, Krumholtz gets the puck at her own blue line and takes it coast to coast in a 1-on-5 during a Blue Gold line change. With nobody to back her up, she decides to take a rip from distance and slots it to the far post to net her first goal on the young season. The Blue Golds would go on to win this one in a close battle as it ended 3-2. Their next game will be on Friday the 14th against Beloit College at the Woodman Sport and Convention Center at 7 p.m. And then, obviously, John, the Blue Golds playing really good. Great start to the season, 2-0. Look to keep it going.
Yeah, white hot start. Let's hope the undefeated train keeps on rolling. And the Blue Golds have really found their momentum offensively this season, in a large part to Aiden Helder, the sophomore standout. He's proven lethal through the air, but this scramble has helped him cement himself as an emerging dual threat. On a read option against Stevens Point, Helder finds a sliver of daylight and turns on the afterburners to make it 6 on a 60-yard run, his longest of the season. This run would be a portion of the 510 yards of total offense UWEC conjured up on the road. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, as Stevens Point wins their first WIAC game in over 4 years. This weekend marks the end of the line for Eau Claire's season, as year 3 of the climb looks to go out on a peak against conference contenders Platteville at home, while honoring the 14 graduating seniors on the squad. And talking to Rob Erickson today, Gary, he emphasized a lot of the leadership was going through this core. But Bob Dunn's offense is really young. But what do you got this week coming off the football field, and your pick?
After an offseason filled with change, the UW Eau Claire men's basketball team finally took to the court in their season opener on Friday. With 3 new faces in the starting lineup, it was familiar name Carter Litzen who got the high-flying action going with this breakaway slam. Already ahead 9-4 early in the matchup, Carter Litzen jumped this pass from Connor Pitleski, turning it into a breakaway for the senior wing. That's when Litzen elevated and threw it down to the excitement of the Sonnentag crowd. The Blue Golds would continue to keep their foot on the gas against the Green Knights, leading by 10 as they headed into the half. Litzen would finish with 17 points on the night, but was outdone by new Blue Gold transfer Will Bozer, who played his high school ball down the Yellow Brick Road at Memorial High. Bozer finished the matchup with 21 to lead the Blue Golds to an 80-66 win. UWEC is 2-0 to start the season after a win against Carleton College as well. And Aiden, the men's basketball team, there's a lot of questions coming into this season, a lot to change, a lot to recover with. Blue Golds have done well. Now from the court to the rink, you finish us off with women's hockey.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Hobbs was rocking for the home opener of the UWEC women's college hockey season. last Friday night when the women's hockey team took on the Olies of St. Olaf, where the game was 1-0 in the favor of the Blue Golds, and with the Olies on a 5-on-3 power play, chaos ensued. With sophomore goaltender Tegan Swanson out of position to say the least following a passing play from St. Olaf, the Olies tried to stuff one in on the goal line to net their first of the year on the power play. With the puck on the goal line, Blue Gold defender Ashley Wagenbach comes through in the clutch to clear the puck out of the blue paint. The Lady Golds unfortunately would drop the game to St. Olaf by a score of 2-1, but the Blue Golds will travel to Beloit, as Alex said, tomorrow to face Beloit College in their first conference game of the season. And John, Blue Golds are rolling, playoff season right around the corner, literally this weekend. So we'll see how all these Blue Gold teams match up.
We'll have to look forward to the tournaments, but when we come back, Aiden and Alec bring you a more complete rundown of what's going on in a big transitional period across the board. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Blue Nation on TV 10.
Welcome back to Blue Nation on TV 10. Tonight's second segment is our Blue Gold Backtrack. Since Blue Nation scared us away from the studio last week, we are back to break down the happenings in Blue Gold sports since our last episode, starting at Simpson Field with the women's soccer team. And with this women's soccer team, Alec, the Lady Blue Golds were able to come out with a draw against Platteville to end their season, but with some, I'm not going to say disappointing, but definitely not this with a young team, not the season you necessarily were hoping for, but definitely room for improvement and things to be proud of as the season went on, and especially for players like Emma Donovan earning her all-WIAC conference player, as well as honorable mention Savannah Swobes and all, I'm going to get the name right, all sportsmanship, there it is, sportsmanship team for Haley Von Rensselaer for her leadership on the pitch. And from one field to another, football.
Absolutely. So football has had 2 games actually since our last show. The first game was against Stevens Point, where they eventually ended up in a 36-39 loss. That game was completely dominated on the run. 452 total rushing yards and 8 touchdowns on the game, all on the ground. The main takeaway was that Aiden Helder, a little reckless with the ball, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, got to clean it up. Then the next game was against Whitewater. That game ended 51-10, led by their running back Ty Schultz, who had 171 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. So coming up, this Blue Golds defense is gonna have some good contest and gonna try to see what they can do.
Yeah, they'll have their hands full against Platteville this weekend. But moving towards the ice, the women's hockey team off to a strong start, 3-1 on the new campaign with just that one loss coming to St. Olaf 2-1 in regulation. But a lot of great things to look forward to for this team. Great play from up and down the roster early. We had 2 goals from some newcomers on the team. Madison Krumholz getting her season started, as you talked about in your top play, with a great goal, might I add, and the defense playing strong. So, and help from all 3 goaltenders on the roster. So, hoping for a nice start, good start to the season. Hoping for that to continue.
Yeah, and then onto the court now for basketball. 2-0 to start, as as Gary had mentioned, actually. The first game against St. Norbert, 80-66 win, led by the transfer Will Bozer. 21 points, 5 for 5 from 3-point range, and then Carter Litson with 17 points to follow him up. A great opening win for the Blue Golds, and then game 2 at Carleton College, they took home another dub. Very similar scoreline, 80-65 this time. Will Bozer had another 14 points. Kenji Scales had 14 of his own. And, this young squad getting going. Andre Renta's taking a little bit to get going, but solid games, and we'll see where they go for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, back to Hobbs
Yep.
with the men's side of the hockey in Eau Claire, but off to a 1-1 start with that loss to St. Olaf in overtime, as well as a 2-0 win at Bethel for a ginormous win they can get there off the back of senior goaltender Max Guchar with his first shutout of the season. And one thing, if any of us in the studio or any hockey fans in the Eau Claire area know, Max Guchar, when he's on his game, might be the best in the WIAC, maybe even D3 hockey. We saw his run last year in the WIAC tournament, played stellar goaltending all the way, able to help them to that WIAC championship. And looking for more out of him and some more faces, new guys on the team, transfers in. They brought in 8 to 11 players, and they're finding the score sheets early.
Absolutely. I was just about to mention Duchar's elite run in the playoffs, helping them to win that WIAC championship. It's great stuff. We'll end it off here on the men's soccer squad, who has also had 2 games, and they were both WIAC tournament. The first one was the semifinals against Platteville, and came out with a 1-0 win. It was a little scrappy, a little sloppy game, but eventually came out with the win. That's all they needed. Move on to the finals against Stevens Point, actually, who had upset Whitewater, and it was a really high offense game. 14 total shots for the Blue Golds, 6 saves by the goalkeeper Jacob Havlick, but one went in for Defender of the Year, actually, in the WIAC Conference, Carson Kowalski, and that was all that the Blue Golds needed to take home their now 2nd straight WIAC championship, and they're going on to their 4th straight NCAA appearance. And speaking of men's soccer in the tournament again, John Gary will go more in depth of their path to the championship right after this short break. Stay locked in. You're watching Blue Nation on TV 10.
Welcome back to Blue Nation, right here on TV 10. Well, it's tournament time for fall sports season, so John and I are here to talk table talk for the tournaments for UWEC and the rest of the WIAC.
Well, that's right, Gary. We'll start with probably the hottest race in the WIAC right now, and that is football. Of course, River Falls have gotten their share already at 8-1 and 5-1 with their win last week. However, they're not out of the woods yet, as much as they would like their first outright title. This is their first title since 1998, if my facts are correct. So they sit atop and number 6 in the country. However, they do have to play Stout this week, who has been known last year and this year to play spoiler. There was a little bit of talk last year, would they be the ones with everyone imploding around them to win the conference? They didn't, and Platteville was able to jump to that top spot. Platteville looking to repeat with a River Falls loss and a win against Eau Claire at Carson Park on Saturday. Similar fate with Whitewater. They need a River Falls loss and their win as well to get a share of the conference title, effectively meaning if Lacrosse, who has a game in hand, will probably not win the WIAC just with overall record, and that's probably just my 2 cents. But if they do win, we could see a 4-way tie depending on how the committee looks at it. Meaning effectively, for the Isthmus Bowl, right, that's usually 3rd place for the WIAC. But this year, that spot might bump all the way down to the bottom half of the table, and Oshkosh, where they sit at 5-4 and 3-3 currently, and of course Stout, Stevens Point, and Eau Claire to round it out. It's been another fun year of WIAC football.
Honestly, John, if I'm the committee, or you just take a look at the MPI, let all 4 of these teams get in. Let the WIAC run, do what it does. A lot of chaos coming for the football playoffs. We'll move on to the next one here, because we've got volleyball coming up. It's WIAC volleyball time. It's tournaments. UW Eau Claire plays host to the 6th-seeded UW Lacrosse after an upset against UW Platteville. Semifinals, Whitewater and Oshkosh. Whew, they went to 5 sets last time. Expect this one to be a good matchup. Winner meets highest seed at 6 o'clock. We could see another beautiful matchup between Oshkosh and Eau Claire. But I believe we're all fans of Whitewater here.
If you are in the Eau Claire campus and you are not bleeding purple and white tonight, there is something wrong with you. I'm kidding. No. But really, what happens here is now that Platteville is out of it, they've been the spoiler. They swept Whitewater, and of course, Eau Claire beat them for their first conference loss. And since then, it's kind of just been a bit of a slide for Whitewater. And this is the first time they've had a losing record in conference, probably in recent memory.
Probably ever.
They've been fighting for the national title within the past 5-10 years more consistently, but now having a 3-4 record in the WIAC going against the absolute buzzsaw
exactly.
that is Oshkosh. And these games are going on right now as we're recording this, so we will know the championship round when we get out. So we'll move on to men's soccer, the big dance. Right, we got the dance floor here and this huge region, of course, Eau Claire playing MSOE at McAllister, and they got the region of death sitting right above them. St. Olaf, Superior, Lake Forest, Luther, and so many more. And Eau Claire has a pretty favorable bid to get there. They drew to MSOE 1-1, but that was the start of that man right there's hot tear. Ramsey Oro playing some amazing forward ball for home squad, so expect them to get back to where they were last year, of course. They are missing Nathan Donovan, but they missed him last year for the tournament, and they got to their first ever Elite 8.
Yeah, it might not be an Elite 8 appearance, but we could definitely see a team like that. Definitely potentially a Sweet 16 run. McAllister, Illinois Wesleyan, definitely a matchup for the Blue Girls. We'll move on, one last one. Women's soccer here. Well, there's no UW Eau Claire, but there is a WIAC representative, UW La Crosse. And man, UW La Crosse, they're dogs. They are an absolute program, 6-0-1 in the WIAC, 18-2-1 overall. And who is it? Aubrey Kaya. Probably the best player in the nation, 23 goals coming off the foot of Kaya. 62% of her shots. 62% are shots on goal. Just an absolute stud coming from La Crosse. Definitely one to watch out for the Eagles.
Now, if you're a WIAC fan and don't want to be a fan of La Crosse, do I have the team for you? Out of Tacoma, Washington, and on the West Coast, the University of Puget Sound. What do we say?
Roll Logs!
And that's right. They come into this tournament 13-2-5. They've only allowed 8 goals on the season. That puts them 13th nationally in that tally. They have a lockdown defense, and look for them to play a little bit of an upset run. They're all the way down here playing Claremont in their first round and will eventually play the winner of Pomona-Pitzer and St. Joseph's. They are at Pomona-Pitzer for their first round as well as their second round. And their top 20 in save percentage, .893 on the year. Really solid numbers. They're going to be my pick. Of course, La Crosse, the top scoring offense in the nation, almost at the century mark, and are pretty much shoe-ins to hit it right before the end of the year, barring anything freezing over. But I like Puget Sound's chances for no real particular reason, but that's all we got for Table Talk.
Yeah, well, we have all of our bases covered for the tournaments, and we will see how they all play out over the next few weeks. Don't go anywhere. It's Blue Nation on TV 10.
Hi, I'm Chancellor Mike. Please don't click the link.
We're data security. Please don't click the link.
It's closing time once again on Blue Nation, but before we do, we're excited to tell you about our favorite matchups coming your way for UW Eau Claire, starting with Alec and the season finale at Carson Park.
Yes, John. The home finale. The Blue Golds football against Platteville. Should be a really tough game. Platteville, obviously, currently ranked number 14 in the country. It'll be a tough one. Platteville averages currently 33 points a game and only allows 17. The Blue Golds average 45 points against them so far this season, and the lowest was 28 against Oshkosh on the road, and the highest was at home against River Falls, and that was 73. But the defense is going to be the key to winning this football game. Obviously, Platteville and the rest of the WIAC, very strong teams overall. But in order to keep this dream going, which it technically isn't because we're not in the tournament, but in order to get this train rolling. The defense is going to have to step up. Aiden Helder has played solid so far this season. Cut down a little bit on the turnovers, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Solid touchdowns, but the interceptions obviously are hurting him a bit. But then don't be surprised this coming game if you see quite a lot of crazy plays coming from the Blue Goals, as you might see in the NFL. Teams that don't have a lot to lose might dig in the bag, bring out some trick plays. You never know what could happen in these kind of games.
You never know. And honestly, I think Eau Claire is going to maybe like to play spoiler. They really have nothing to lose. They might put up a shootout. It could be fun. You never know. But moving on now to men's soccer. Of course, they got the first round of the tournament this weekend up at McAllister, like we mentioned before, against a familiar foe in MSOE. Now, earlier this year, when Eau Claire went down to Milwaukee, they drew 1-1, but that was the start of something special for Ramsey Oro, like we mentioned before. 6 goals in his last 4 appearances, now making it 5 in his tear since he started. And since then, they have not lost a game. They've won 3 and drawn 2, and they've only conceded 1 goal after coming back from Milwaukee, and that was against Whitewater, who they did face in the WIAC slate as well. On senior night, they did concede to Cooper Ray, but ever since then, an Oro hat trick, an Oro banger from outside the box, and Kowalski putting it home for the second WIAC double. I think this is going to be a really good game. I don't see this game going any shorter than a single overtime. And we saw it last year when we hosted all the tournament games as well. Not only Eau Claire going to penalties against Platteville and double overtime against Hope, almost every other game seemed to follow that trend. We saw Amherst and Superior go to double overtime. We saw a couple other games come down to the wire. I feel like it's going to be the same thing. It is the first round, so maybe the margins are a little bit wider, but these are 2 teams playing at their top right now. Of course, MSOE winning the NACC right before this. It should be an awesome matchup.
Yeah, for men's hockey, UW Eau Claire split the weekend 1-1, lost to Olaf with a win against Bethel. We've mentioned it quite a bit here. Max Guchar kind of stood on his head for most of that matchup against Bethel with the shutout. But man, UW Eau Claire just cannot get past St. Olaf. They can't get past the Oldies. I don't know what it is. The Blue Goals haven't won against St. Olaf since the 2022-2023 season when they won at Hobbs 3-1. I can't tell you the last time they won at St. Olaf. They've been a powerhouse for the past few years. We could definitely see St. Olaf being a contender again. It's definitely not a bad loss. It's not a bad loss on the Blue Gold's docket. It's early in the season, literally game 1, so you really can't take much from that. But you got 2 matchups coming at home this weekend. The banner dropping ceremony on Friday at Hobbs against Concordia College of Minnesota, obviously dropping that WIAC championship winning banner, and Augsburg on Saturday. Last weekend, this is the last weekend of the matchups before we start conference play next weekend. Last thing, the most surprising thing of the first 2 games of the weekend, no goals and only 4 shots from Max Dronin. Dronin, sophomore, an absolute superstar last year as a freshman. I expect we see that tick up coming here at home, especially at Hobbs for weekend number 2.
Yeah, no, I think Dronin's just a matter of time before he'll start to shine back on the lights at Hobbs and elsewhere around the WIAC slate. But switching to the women's side of things, they visit Beloit for the first time. Beloit is in the WIAC for hockey after we saw Northland leave last year. But which is interesting to see. On the schedule, it says 1 game is non-conference and 1 game is conference. I believe that is because you play 3 against everybody, and right now they're scheduled to play 4. So I think they're going to have their doubleheader or back-to-back rather later in the year where it's both WIAC slate. Right now on the schedule, it looks like 1 is non-con, 1 is. Either way, regardless, we're seeing some incredible scoring from some not so familiar faces as we're used to. Madison Krumholz with 12 goals last year. Right now, with this 3-run start, only having 1. But Kenzie Keller, Jana Lesh, and Greta Piaski all with 2. And right under them is Jordan Hancock leading the way in assists with 2 on the year, and some great play out of these Lady Blue Golds on the ice. It has been incredible to watch. I called that game against St. Olaf where there was their only loss on the season so far. But man, if I can say anything, that team is ready and that team is out and hungry because the passing was crisp. It wasn't sloppy hockey. They The one thing that they can work on as far as just the one game I saw is penalties. You had 2 5-on-3 short-handed chances. Olaf had those 2 5-on-3 power plays. It has been tough for them to stay out of the box, but I think if they can shape up and not take as many penalties, we're going to see this Lady Blue Girls team contending and maybe have a shot against that juggernaut of River Falls come tournament time.
I mean, we've seen it again and again. If you go to the WIAC records, you see one team that deviates from River Falls. Yep. And that's a good old UWEC. But that is a wrap on this week's edition of Blue Nation. Another special episode is en route to your screens next week as the time-honored tradition of Show Swap is on deck. The lovely duo of Calder Smith and Miranda Larson will take over for us as we will be taking the reins on Game Show. Same time, same place, Thursdays at 7 as always, but a new twist on mytv10.uwec.edu or on our YouTube, UWEC TV10.
Man, don't you love social media? Yeah, so do we at TV10. We do too. Follow our social media at UWEC TV10 on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.
From myself, Gary, Alec, and Aiden, the MVP tonight and every night, Mr. David Abel at the helm, those inside the studio and out of it, we love and thank you for your time here tonight. For Blue Nation, I'm John McClain.
I'm Gary Barta.
I'm Alec Olson.
And I'm Aiden Peterson.
Saying good evening, and until next time.